Hello, I'm Eric, and we're going to be taking a look at the Aune X1s 10th anniversary headphone amplifier. So here's what the top of the box looks like. You do get a foam pad that goes on the top. And before we talk about what the inside of the box looks like, let me get these cables out of the way. So you get a power adapter. Output is 12 volt AC, 0.8 amps. Now each side has a cord. So this is the side that you plug into your power outlet, and it's only about 3 feet long. And then here's the other side, which kind of has like a 4-pin, and that's what you plug into the power port on your amp. So that's what this looks like. And this is only about 3 feet long as well, so about 6 feet total. So not that long, but long enough to at least reach where you're going. Now inside of it, they do give you a USB cable, so you can use this to play music from your computer, for example. This port is like a printer port, and that plugs into the amp. And then the other side, they give you just a regular USB. And this cable is only about around 4 feet. It's nice and thick, and it doesn't really get tangled, either of these cables. So the cables are not bad. So now inside the box, I'll just show you what that would look like. It'll be wrapped in this bag, and then you get another bag, and then the amp would be right in here. And then you get just a service call card. You get a USB manual. Now it's a flat USB, so you just plug this into your USB port. It is going to be a little weird because you probably never use something that's like this, but you just stick it in the USB port, and they give you an adapter as well. And the cables will be obviously zip tied. So let's go ahead and give you what the unit looks like. So here's the unit. So there's the front of it. There's nothing on the top, nothing on the sides, just this little indent there. There's nothing on the bottom either. You can see there is 4 feet. So you'll notice that this is fully enclosed, so no dust can get inside of it, other than maybe the back where there's a little bit of venting, as you can see. And it does get a little hot. So there's the back of the unit. As you can see, all the ports that you get. We'll talk about that really soon. So let's talk about the front first. So let's go ahead and talk about where you plug your headphones in. So if you have a standard 3.5, you'll need this adapter. And you plug this onto your headphone cable, and you plug it right into here. And it's very smooth, and it just has like a final click. And pulling it out is pretty smooth too. It does take a little force though. So I'd say it's a little smoother than the Schiit Magni 2 amp. And also talking about the volume knob, this is also smoother than the Schiit Magni 2. Now I like the Schiit Magni 2 volume knob, but I would say this one's a little bit better. And you can see it goes all the way around to about there. And then this would be no volume. Now you do get a very easy to see indicator, so that's even better. Then here's your input selector button. Now you can select between USB input, optical input, coaxial input, and line input. Now you can use the line in if you're going to just use the headphone amplifier and not the DAC for your headphones. Now also you can hold this button in for about 3 seconds, and it switches between about 3 filters. I believe 2 of them is called high pass filter and low pass filter, I believe. And I wasn't able to really tell a hearing difference between the 3. They didn't do a whole lot. I'm not entirely sure what they're supposed to do, but I believe it has something to do with like like ringing, it's supposed to stop some type of ringing around a certain frequency. But other than that, I don't think you really need to bother with that. So let's talk about the back now. So this is where you plug the power part of that power adapter thing that it comes with right here. And then the USB cable that they give you, you'll plug it right into here. And then here's your power switch. And then all these ports will have red caps so you don't get dust in the ports. I just have mine taken off. So you get a optical input, but no optical output. You do get coaxial input on the top, and then coaxial output on the bottom. And then you get RCA outs, and then you get also RCA ins. And that's about it. Now I have not used the coaxial or the optical. I used this by plugging it into my computer with USB. And I did use powered monitors, which I did plug into the RCA inputs. Now I did try to plug my computer with the headphone output to an RCA input here, so I can test the line in. So other than that, you'll also notice it's a fingerprint magnet. The O2 amp doesn't really get fingerprinty, and the schiit magni 2 doesn't really get fingerprinty, but the Theo does. Now before we talk about the audio, there's one last thing. Is if you're on like USB input, there's going to be like a little dull green light right here. It's very hard to see, so it's very not noticeable. So that is pretty good. So let's go ahead and talk about the audio quality. Now, if you already watched my O2 amp review or my schiit magni 2 review, you probably already know what I'm going to say. Now, for bass, I would say the schiit magni 2 and the Theo Q1 Mark II have strong bass, and it's very tight, but I would say the O2 is just a little more boomy. And I would say the Aune X1s, if you have to get it loud enough, then I would say it's just a little more powerful. But if you use the Theo Q1 Mark II's bass boost, then it has the most bass out of all four. And it's very good sounding still. Now for the mids, now I already said that the schiit magni 2 has the best vocals. And I would still agree with that. And then I would say probably the Theo Q1 Mark II is just under the schiit magni 2, just by a little, you know. And then a little under that would be either this, the Aune X1s, which I'd probably still put over. Actually, maybe I'll probably put it under the O2 amp. And that's the major problem with this. I'm going to talk about that in a real second. And as for the highs aren't that actually great on this, and that's another problem. I would say the schiit magni 2 and the Theo is probably the better two. Then the O2, and I'll put this one for last place. So what exactly is wrong with this for me? Now, when I had my speakers hooked up to this, and let's talk about a little bit of story time. When I first got this, I didn't really like how it sounded. It sounded weird, like something was recessed or just too spacious. And then, you know, I didn't really play with it a lot until I got my my M10. Well, the only thing I was mainly using it for is for my powered speakers. And my powered speakers sounded fine. But about a month later, after using it on powered speakers only, I unhooked the powered speakers from it. And I'm going to have to say the powered speakers sounded a bit better without using this. And then around that time, I also installed the Theo DAC because I just recently got the Theo DAC. And around that time, I also was doing some testing on my M1060Cs. Now, when I first got my M1060Cs, they sounded really recessed. Like, the vocals didn't sound good, and the other sound effects were kind of recessed. Now, I would have to say maybe this amp didn't play well with those headphones because they're really low in ohms. And, but after a while, maybe the headphones needed to break in. But I tried this on other headphones as well, and it still kind of has a recessed sound, just not as much. So the vocals sound like they're coming from too far away. It just has a weird sound. And the other sound effects, I would say maybe beats the Schiit Magni 2 in terms of like soundstage and imaging. But it has kind of like a distinct, like distant sound to it, like a recessed sound, particularly for the vocals. And that's why I don't like this amp. It's just it sounds weird. Now, recently I just did some more testing last night, and I have to admit it sounds pretty good on the AKG K7XXs, especially when you're doing gaming, because you can really tell that the soundstage and the imaging probably is the best on this. But when you're listening to music, it just has a very like recessed sound to it, like a really, let's call it a laid back sound. It's just very laid back sounding, and I just don't really like it. Now let's also talk about one other thing. Let's say if you accidentally, because I wanted to see what would happen. Oh, by the way, actually, you know what's something that's really interesting? If I have my if I have USB plugged into the computer, and then coming from the same source, which you're not supposed to do that, if you also plug the headphone jack into an RCA cable into the RCA ends, it kind of screws up the amp. So you get like jumbled, like very low volume audio out from the speakers or the headphone port. So you can't use, you can't have two different things coming out of your computer. So you have to choose one. And also, let's just say if you were fooling around and you plugged, like, let's say your powered speakers. Actually, I already did that. So yeah, I plugged the computer and the USB in, and then I had the powered speakers into the RCA outs. And the speakers didn't sound right, and the headphone jack didn't sound right. So just if you're wondering, if you were to plug your computer into both of these, because maybe you want to switch between both of them just to see which one sounds better, USB or RCA. I wasn't able to test that because I can't have the same source plugged into two ports, so I couldn't test that. And I don't currently have a optical cable that's free to use right now, so I didn't really test that. And my computer doesn't have coaxial, so I couldn't test coaxial. But other than that, back to the sound, I'm going to have to sum it up right here and make this short. I just don't really like how this sounds. And pretty much for the money, you're mostly paying for these ports on the back. And I already said, it kind of made my speakers sound worse. My speakers actually sounded pretty much fine. I think the headphones have the biggest impact. But the speakers, it didn't have as big as an impact. But once I unplugged them from this and started listening to my soundtracks, it just didn't sound, it sounded better than when I had it plugged into this. So you might want to use this as a DAC for your speakers, and it just doesn't really work too well. And I would say it started working very good once I installed that FIO DAC. And I didn't have enough time to test to see if maybe the FIO DAC made it sound better, or maybe if I tried plugging the speakers back in, it would sound recessed again. It's just, I don't really like how this sounds. So I'm going to go ahead and just end it here. So thank you for watching.